Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Facing Exclusion, Pioneering Activists, Harry Hom Dow and Tian Fu Wu, featuring artist Christina R. Chan. It's so wonderful to see so many new and familiar faces here, and welcome to the folks on HowlRound, tuning in from HowlRound TV. I am Susan Chinson, the Managing Director of the Chinese Historical Society of New England, and this is our kickoff event for our 25th anniversary of celebrating 25 years of documenting, preserving, and promoting the history of Chinese immigration to the New England area. Before we start, I want to just take a moment to let you know about the genesis of this project. ArtsEmerson had invited me to a meeting almost 2 years ago where they expressed to me their interest in wanting to work on a project related to Boston's Chinatown. I had just come from a meeting at the Moakley Archive at Suffolk University where we had received a small grant from the Massachusetts Humanities to do some research around Harry Dow's papers, where at the archive they have discovered 2 scripts he wrote almost 80 years ago. So here we are today. In what started out as an idea to do a simple reading, we now have a full blossomed production that has been made possible by a village of supporters and cast and crew. And of that cast and crew, I especially want to recognize artist Christina R for her insistence in making this a full-blown production is a staged performance. And that would not have been possible without the support of funding from the Boston Foundation and the Boston Cultural Council. Within that village, I also would like to recognize one of my cohorts who has really made this possible. And from behind the screen over here is Jess Wong-Cami. Jess. And also today, other folks I want to recognize are folks from the Dow family. If they would be recognized, Fred has been a huge supporter in helping to make this be produced and connecting with the family members. You guys should just be recognized. Thank you. Also, Professor Mickey Lee from working with her students for doing the slides as you were coming in, as well as our post-audience reflection activity for the Certificates of Resilience, who I'll tell you in a minute. And then and especially sitting next to her is Justina Chu. And I just want to recognize her. She also has formerly worked at Suffolk University, but it was really at her insistence. She actually intercepted the boxes of Harry Dow's papers, which were initially going to an archive in California. And she intercepted them and convinced the family and Suffolk University that they needed to stay at Suffolk University and stay here in Massachusetts. And if it were not for that, we would not be here presenting his work and his voice today. And most of all, I also would like to recognize our sponsors, especially those that have taken support around our 25th anniversary and today's production and their belief in that this would be possible, especially the National Park Service, Tufts Medical Center, South Cove Community Health Center, the Rosenberg Institute of Asian Studies at Suffolk University, Seyfarth Shaw, and the Suffolk University School of Law. And most importantly, I wanted to recognize ArtsEmerson for their support through their Community Curators Program, really in making all of this possible, inviting us to this space, and really sort of bringing our full selves and community here. And here with us today is Nicole Olusanya from ArtsEmerson.
Welcome. My name is Nicole Olusanya, and I'm the Special Initiatives Manager here at ArtsEmerson. I want to say, on behalf of our entire team, welcome. You are welcome here. At ArtsEmerson, we have a core belief that the arts belong to everyone, so we want you to feel at home, and we want you to feel like you're welcome here. So we hope that if this is the first time, we hope it won't be the last, and that you'll come back and see us often. I have the very special pleasure of working with Susan Chinson as one of our esteemed community curators. It's a new initiative where we've invited 5 local artists and organizers to envision and produce events in our downtown spaces. And they really range from the Asian American Film Festival to a live music benefit to a fully accessible fashion show for people with disabilities that we're doing in June. So there's a broad range, and it's really exciting to be able to welcome the various communities of Boston into our spaces and be doing really important work. I want to say Thank you to Susan. It's been so great working on this project together. A little bit of housekeeping before I throw it back to her. Please notice the exit signs behind you in the rare case of an emergency. You want to follow right through those exits and straight out the building. And again, thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you, Nicole. And yes, it's been a wonderful honor that ArtsEmerson really has entrusted this much amount of leeway in being able to utilize their resources and be in this space for something that has an immense value, as you will get to see through this production. For those of you who also have cell phones or other audio devices on you, if you please put them on silent so that it doesn't disrupt the program, that would also be greatly appreciated. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown of the program this afternoon. We will start with a short clip. It'll be about 5 minutes long, and it's a clip from a forthcoming PBS documentary called the Chinese Exclusion Act, and this actually happens to be the 130th anniversary of the signing of it this May 6th. And that should hopefully provide for those of you who may not be familiar with the Act to get at least a little bit of understanding for today's performance. Following that will be Christina doing a monologue from her performance of Unbinding Our Lives, and specifically the role of Tien Fu Wu. And that performance was first performed 25 years ago this year as well. We will then roll right into Nutzacrackin, Immigration and Naturalization, and then following that will be a panel, which we hope will help be able us to process a little bit about what we've just seen and sort of how it relates to what we're experiencing today. So with that, I would like to invite you to enjoy the show. Afterwards, to continue the conversation in the lobby, we also have an audience engagement activity for you to all create a certificate of resilience. So you guys can find out a little bit more about that following the panel. So enjoy. Thank you.
Scissors, paper, and rock. It's how they say it here in this country. I was just playing this game with the children here at the San Francisco Mission Home. When I left my family, my childhood was over. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to my brothers or to give away my toys. If I had known what was happening to me, I would have given my favorite toy, like this bird, to my second brother so that he'll remember me. I wonder if he does. If I had known I wasn't coming back home, I would have hidden it. I was 6 years old the last time I saw my family and my home, far away in China. I remember a flowering plum tree outside the door, and though I wasn't supposed to, I would climb in it. My brothers would boost me up, and I'd scramble way up to the top, just like a little monkey, they used to say. I remember the smooth earth where my brothers and I would play, and a mixed up smell of animals and cooking, a smell that is like nothing else. Sometimes, when I'm walking through San Francisco's Chinatown, I'll smell something that's almost like that smell, and the sound of my mother's voice and the feel of her dress will come back to me. My mother was good to me, of that I'm sure. And it may be that both my parents spoiled me when I was really little. You know, only 6. I had plenty of time to run and play and sing songs. The mission ladies gave me a box for me to put my special toys in. So when I was younger, I had toys just like this in China. I had kites, tops, dolls, and this little carved birds that I kept in a bright red lacquer box. I knew that daughters sometimes were sold when there was a crop failure. Everyone, even the smallest children, knew that such a thing could happen. But before my worthless father had such bad luck, I never thought that this would happen to me. My family had a good plot of land. I had older brothers who all worked hard. We had plenty to eat. We were lucky until that day when my worthless father gambled away every cent we had. The day my father took me to be sold, he lied. He said he was taking me to see my grandmother. I'm very fond of her, so I got on that ferry boat with him very happily. But my mother was crying. I couldn't understand why she should cry if I go see Grandma. My mother gave me a brand new toothbrush and a new wash rag in a blue bag. I said to her, "Mommy, 唔好喊啊，我去見婆婆，咁我睇住間返嚟啊." Mother, don't cry. I'm just going to go see Grandma, and I'll be right back. And that worthless father, my own father, sold me on the ferry boat, locked me in a cabin while he was talking to get a good price. I remember saying, "Papa, 點解你將我呢度啊？呢度好黑㗎。Daddy, why did you put me in here? It's so dark." I kicked and I kicked and I screamed, "Papa, 唔好留低我。Papa, 俾我出啊。Daddy, don't leave me. Daddy, let me out. Let me out." But I wasn't let out. Not until my father got his bargain, and then he left the steamer. That's when they let me loose. And I ran up and down, here and there. But I couldn't find my father. He had gone away. That boat took me to a bigger boat, and then across the ocean. I arrived here in San Francisco. The agent who bought me sold me for a house servant. I suppose I wasn't so good as a house servant should be because I was sold 3 more times, or maybe I was traded. I don't know. I didn't understand their bargains or what these people wanted of me or how to please them. After all, I was only 8 years old. I cried and I cried, and I begged each of my mistresses, "Please, send me back home to my mother." Finally, I ended up with this terrible woman. She beat me hard. She had this big, fat baby that I was to carry on my back all the time, even though I was little for 8 years old. Carry this big, fat baby on my back. Even when I was trying to do the laundry, I would be stooped over, trying to scrub the clothes, and this big, fat baby would be tugging and pulling at me and crying so much. I just didn't care anymore. I reached back, and I pinched that baby on its cheek. His seat, you know, I just gave it to him. Well, his mother went and got a red-hot tong and burnt me on the arm. Someone must have heard my screams or saw my scars. Some kind person reported my mistress to the mission workers, and they came and took me away here to the San Francisco mission home. At first, I wasn't happy here either. I was rebellious. I couldn't understand why I wasn't allowed to run and play and sing songs, and why I couldn't be back with my mother and my brothers. I was always a tomboy, you know, always running around and looking for fun. I didn't want to pray with those ghost ladies, or go into the kitchen and scrub, or learn to sew. I would pray to the goddess of compassion, Guan Yin, to please come and take me away. Then I would run out into the backyard and sing the old songs as loud as I could. Tam tam jin, guk fa yun, ngo ma gyu ngo tai, lung sun, ngo wa, ngo tai. I'd hide behind the flour sacks. And in the cupboards, when I was supposed to be working, I'd imagine myself a heroine in a story. Pretend that all this trouble was just an adventure, and that someday I'd run away and then be happy again forever after. I would have run away every day, If only I could have thought of somewhere to run to. What a trial I was to the good ladies that ran the mission home. I was so naughty. Once, when matron chided me for not doing my work, I went and I hung my head out the window on the very coldest day of that year. When matron found me, she asked me, "What do you think you're doing?" I said I want to catch pneumonia and die so that I could come back as a ghost and haunt her for being so mean to me. There was also this Chinese matron lady there. Her name was Ah Song. Ah Song was smuggled into this country a long time before I came. Her owner was going to sell her to be a prostitute. She ran away here to the mission home. Her owner then had her arrested. He claimed that she was a thief. He said that all the clothes and jewelry she wore belonged to him. Now this happens all the time. It's a way the owners get the American police to help them keep Chinese in bondage. Slavery is supposed to be illegal. But what do Americans care about what happens to heathen Chinese? After 2 court trials, Ah Song won her freedom. Now, Ah Song wasn't like me. She was happy here at the mission home from the start. She became a Christian, and she worked as an interpreter, teaching and preaching. She could also play the organ, and she would lead the congregation in hymns. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Oh, I could understand why she liked that part. I like the hymn singing myself. Sometimes I would imagine myself all grown up and then pound out the chords on the organ, make a big, wonderful sound. Or sometimes I would sneak into the parlor, just out of wickedness, you know, and try out the keys on the piano. Because Ah Song said that if I want to play it, I'd have to take lessons and then learn all the hymns. I said, no, thank you. I'm not interested anymore. But I was very impressed that a Chinese woman could be so well educated and have so much respect. I thought maybe I would like to be an educated Chinese woman too. Ah Song tried to convert me to be a Christian, but I was still too wild and stubborn. Besides, how could I give up the gods and the festivals and the family that still lived in my heart? When I think back to that before time, it was as if every day were a festival. Everything was so bright and exciting. My mother and father would laugh and joke with me and look pleased with me because I was so quick and strong. I thought then that I was special and that people would always be pleased with me. Instead, I was sold. There were many daughters who were sold that committed suicide. They would hang or stab themselves if they wished to bring shame on those who had hurt them, or they would just refuse to eat and then waste away in sorrow. Not me. I made up my mind to live. My friend, Yun Kwai, taught me that I had a purpose in life. Yun Kwai was the personal interpreter for Donaldina Cameron, the head of the whole mission home. I tell you, I was loud and wild. Well, Yun Kwai was just the opposite. She was this quiet student, a seamstress and a reader, and she had a strong Christian faith. But she never made me feel bad. Yun Kwai was my best friend and as dear to me as a sister. If I could do my work in Yun Kwai's company, I wasn't tempted to spoil or be lazy. I even stopped daydreaming that I'd run away. Then my friend became ill. I asked Miss Cameron if I could be with her at Yun Kwai's bedside and help to nurse her. We sponged her and fed her and held her hand. And when Miss Cameron prayed, I joined in with all my heart. But nothing we could do was of any help. Yun Kwai was burning up with fever. She was wasting away. Together, Miss Cameron and I watched as this dear soul that we loved sunk into death. I was very grieved myself. But Miss Cameron, she broke down. She broke down completely. I decided at that moment to accept her faith and to take my dear friend's place as Miss Cameron's helper, as Yun Kwai would have wanted. And I have succeeded in this. Miss Cameron often says that I am like a dear elder daughter to her. I too have become an educated Chinese woman, even more so than the respected Ah Sung. I attended the Stevens School in Pennsylvania for 4 years, and then I went on scholarship for another 2 years at the Toronto Bible School. Now I'm truly qualified to be Miss Cameron's helper. I assist in the rescues. Rescues can be very exciting. Going in with the constable to help save some poor woman from bondage. Her owner might hide her in the cupboard, so the constable has to go in with this crowbar, tapping to find a hollow wall, to break down, to set the prisoner free. Most times, she's terrified. She only knows what her owners told her, scare stories about wicked white people. She thinks we're coming in to torture or murder her. She's weeping and shrieking while I'm trying to explain to her that we're her friends. Or sometimes, the owners will threaten us. He'll say to me in Chinese, so the constable won't understand. 你想死啊？點解你幫嗰啲白鬼佬啊？ How dare you join in with those white foreign devils? You'll be sorry. I pay no attention to that man. I refuse to be afraid. I remember what it was like to be sold, to weep and shriek, shut up all alone. I run to that cupboard where that girl is hidden. I break those doors down and I set her free. Tum tum June, Cook Fa Yun, Cook Ma Gyung, or Tai, Long Soon, Wa Wa, Ngom Tai.
Hear ye, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Congress of the United States at the first session begun and held at the city of Washington in the District of Columbia on Monday the 5th day of September 1882 to execute certain treaty stipulations relating to Chinese. Whereas, in the opinion of the United States government, the coming of Chinese laborers to this country endangers certain localities within the territories, therefore, be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that from and after the expiration of 90 days next after the passage of this act, and until the expiration after years after the passage of this act, and until the coming of Chinese laborers to the United States be and the same is hereby suspended. And during such suspension, it shall not be lawful for any Chinese laborers to come, or so having come after the expiration of said 90 days, to remain within the United States. That the words Chinese laborers, wherever used in this act, shall be construed to mean both skilled and unskilled, and Chinese employed in mining. Signed, Joseph Warren Kiefer, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dario Davis, President of the Senate, approved by the President of the United States, Chester A. Arthur, May 6, 1882.
Hello and welcome to the INS Regional Monthly Meeting. My name is Harry Dow. I'm an interpreter for the Chinese division, and we are in charge of this month's meeting. Today's agenda was to report on our numbers, but we decided to do something different. We decided to present to you with a play that I wrote. It's called A Day in the Chinese Division. Hope you enjoy the play.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's get at the morning mail. Oh, holy mackerel! The central office again. Listen to this. Reference is made to the case of Ma Dongfan, who was recently excluded on the grounds that she admits the commission of a crime involving moral turpitude, to wit, placing poison in the tea of Hip Hai, warlord of Tin Sen province, which was followed by his death. The inspector who conducted the examination has exhibited rare talent and perspicacity, which should make him go far down. The examining officer is, to say the very least, guilty of gross carelessness, rank professional ineptitude, abysmal fundamental ordinariness of insight, and acute inflammatory lack of gray matter. Any repetition will cause the central office to search for more harsh terms. Reopening of this case is in order. However, central office file containing consular cable dispatches relating to the case has been lost. It would be embarrassing to ask for copies from the State Department. Exclusion and habeas corpus proceedings might also be embarrassing. Therefore, land the alien on the grounds that she is a political refugee. Oh, forget it. Forget this. So tell me, what did you do last night?
Oh, I saw the most charming picture about Chinese smuggling. Mae West took the part of a Chinese girl who's being held against her will. And then she's held in bondage in a house, and then the inspector walks past and she looks out the window and she says, "Won't you come up and free me sometime, Inspector?"
Oh, that's fine. Fine. You know, Miss French, there's something about you that reminds me of an excluded alien.
What's that, Mr. Inspector?
Your appeal, Miss French. It is sustained. I am a brusque man of words, few and snappy. But if your attention I may arrest would make me very happy. I'm not given to language romantic, nor phrases ardent and fiery. But I shall go frantic unless I make this special inquiry. How about a date? The Chinese philosophers would say, a date with you? Ah, better. All the figs grown in California.
Mr. Inspector.
Don't call me that. Call me Willie.
Mr. Willie A. Can't.
Oh. Oh, Rosie, Malloy. We are a holy trinity.
Often accused of asininity.
But any alien so deluded is sure to find himself excluded.
We examine passports, dirty, greasy, looking for a proper vice.
We want to know all.
Your name, have you committed crimes? With whom? And how many times?
Will you, the U.S., try to overthrow?
You're a damn fool, communist, if you say so.
Do you suffer from superiority?
Or psychopathic inferiority?
Do you believe in bigamy?
Balance budgets. Polygamy.
Are you healthy, suffering from colic?
LPC or a chronic alcoholic?
Has your conduct been good or lewd?
Or have you been suffering from moral turpitude?
Are you dyspeptic? Epileptic?
Are you docile? An antiquated fossil?
Do you fuss? Do you fidget?
Are you a moron or an idiot?
We swear 'em, we scare 'em. Watch and you shall see.
We'll find the cause of exclusion.
It's only XYZ.
But no matter how exclusionist we feel,
The alien always beats us on appeal.
Yeah, they go before the board of review.
and you know what they do.
And if that doesn't thwart us,
They get writs of habeas corpus.
So well, let them come from any clime, just as long as the paychecks come on time.
How many are translators here? I see hands from the Italian, Greek, and the Eastern European divisions.
The Immigration Act of 1924 was intended to permanently restrict immigration numbers from undesirable parts of the world, particularly from Russia and Eastern Europe. Aside from cheap labor, there was fear that immigrants from these parts of the world were Bolsheviks or other kinds of radicals. The Red Scare from 1919 to 1920 was symptomatic of a growing concern that revolutions happening in Europe could spread to the US. After the passage of the act, fewer than 10,000 European Jews and other Eastern Europeans immigrated to the US, while German immigrants numbered 45,000 and British subjects 50,000 annually.
back in business again.
Do you call this a business? It's more like a profession, like music.
Yeah, and we are always playing the wrong tune. We're immigrant inspectors, lie detectors, the very best in the ranks. Do we get more money? Oh, that's funny. All we get is thanks. For years we've stayed in the same salary grade, while seniors less smart than us get a raise. Once we've reached Methuselah's age and arrived at the retirement stage, we'll get it.
Get what?
A pension and praise.
At least we occupy dignified positions here below. In all probability, when we pass beyond, St. Peter will cast us in the same roles.
But will we be able to stand the heat?
But I also have cause to complain about the many new rules and laws. They give me a headachy pain to study their numerous flaws. One day we are instructed to do this, and the next day it is retracted. Yes, sir, the hodgepodge of what to do and what not to do leaves one quite utterly distracted.
Are you distracted and headachy from the many rules and laws?
No, I don't study them.
Don't blame me, Rosen. The The rules seem purposely so confounded that the official chopping block accompanies every case we handle.
Yes, we do just as well to decide cases by the length of shadow an applicant casts.
I wonder why it is that bankrupt minds are always so vociferous. Let's get to the business of the day. We have many Chinese applicants waiting so long, they must have forgotten their coaching papers by now.
Coaching papers are unique to the Chinese division. These are what Chinese immigrants use to prepare for their immigration interview. In 1906, San Francisco was struck by an earthquake. City Hall initially survived the quake, but was later consumed by fires. Chinese immigrants took advantage of this when they were filling out documents to replace the ones destroyed. They would claim to have many more sons than they actually had. These documents would be later sold back to the villagers in China, and these people were called paper sons. Immigration officials caught on and started to interrogate Chinese immigrants with extremely detailed questions, such as, how many steps lead up to the front door? Which direction does that door face? Questions meant to furrow out the paper sons, the ones with fake identities.
Even real sons had to have coaching papers to prepare for the interviews. And if the real families and their sons had different facts, the consequence was, well, I'm not going to tell you, or that would give away the ending of the play.
These Chinese cases, that gives me a laugh. Even the shape of a giraffe is capable of some rational explanation. But a Chinese case occupies a peculiar case, solvable not even by astronomical calculation.
By the way, who's this new Chinese interpreter we have?
His name is Young. He's a bright fellow from China. Been here quite some years. Originally came as a student, an alien. You know, these Chinese interpreters aren't under civil service. They don't have to be citizens.
Oh, I see.
And I bow to the bower, wherein sits my little lotus flower.
I may be a lotus flower whom you are fond, but don't expect me to grow in that lily pond.
Honorable Chairman, an applicant for admission.
Well, bring him in. But he picks a bad day. I have been thwarted. If the applicant knows his onions, he may keep from in front of an enraged bull, from behind and around skunk, and as far as possible in every direction from a thwarted government official. Well, why didn't you say it was from the Rice Growers Union? Bring him in! Never let it be said that we close our ears to the upraised voices clamoring at our gates. At least, not between 9 and 4:30. Gentlemen, the cases, files in this case.
Let us now arrange the details of the applicant's exclusion so that there may be no claim of unfair hearing.
Yes, we should thread our excluding business with soothing phrases so that the applicant may not be unduly distressed.
None of that lotus flower business from you.
Swear the applicant. What did he say?
I will not tell a lie.
That is not enough under the law. You must swear to tell the truth.
That's a lot of back and forth in translation. The applicant only speaks Chinese to the inspectors, but you'll hear everything in English as if I'm translating everything he's saying.
I swear to tell the truth.
What is your name?
Want to go. Funny, huh? These three monosyllables are the characters that make a Chinese name. The place of the characters signify the order of importance. The first is the last name. So one is a surname, not a first name like a European one. Immigration officials juxtapose Chinese first and last names all the time. This is what happened to my father. His Chinese name was Hom Dow, so Hom was my last name. Many Chinese immigrants lost their ancestral lineage during their immigration process.
So soon? At this hearing, you have the right to have present a friend or relative. Do you wish to avail yourself of this right? No.
I believe that's prejudicial.
Bullfrogs open their mouths at night after songbirds have closed theirs. So don't interrupt. How old are you?
I'm 24 years old.
Where were you born?
Oolong Village, China.
On what basis do you claim to have any right to enter or to remain in the United States?
My father was a native-born citizen of the United States.
Are you of the Chinese race?
Yes.
Do you read Chinese?
Yes.
Read this. Miss French, write this down. Applicant is given test card number 3 with Chinese characters thereon, the English translation of which is, this is to test your ability to read Chinese. Comply with these instructions. Place your right hand on your forehead and raise this card with your left hand. Applicant reads,
I would like to ask a question at this time.
whenever it is disagreeable to my greatly overworked mind that nothing of a disagreeable nature should intrude, your face has to appear. Where is your father?
He died somewhere in the United States during the Tong War.
Is your mother in China?
Yes.
Was she ever in the United States?
No.
What is your father's name?
Wan Long To.
We have here the record relating to a Wan Long To. Killed in a Tong War, in the Tong War between the AFL and the CIO Laundrymen's Union. According to your testimony, you were born in China about 1913. Your mother was never here. Your alleged father was last seen in 1908. How is it then that you were born in China in 1913? Hey, interpreter, what has he got there? Just as we thought. A coaching letter. This case is clearly a concoction, a fraud. Look at this. Look at this. Coaching letter, family history and all.
Yes, sir.
Ask him. How does he explain this?
When the memory is stressed, the written page is best.
Are you to present any witnesses, relative, or identifying witnesses?
No.
Have you any relatives in the United States?
Only a distant relative, Wang Gong Bong, somewhere in the United States.
How is he related to you?
His paternal grandfather's sister's cousin and my maternal grandmother's brother's cousin were once engaged to marry.
Did you own a water buffalo?
A buffalo, but no water.
Well, then how did you get water then?
From the well in front of the village.
Did your family own any domestic animals?
One cat, one dog.
Describe your house in China.
2 bedrooms, kitchen, and an open court.
What, no bath?
No bath.
Oh, wait a minute, what about the Board of Health?
It's French. Not everyone can live in a Bronx apartment.
Mr. Willie, Mr. Inspector, may I ask the applicant a question?
Miss French, you are not authorized to do so. Our central office did not see fit to grant you a charter empowering you to do business as a member of the board. I guess they recognize that authority fits a woman as a saddle does a cat. How many children did your parents have?
8 sons, no daughters.
Are you married?
Yes, I have a wife with 8 sons, no daughters.
What is this, all sons and no daughters?
What is with these questions? Continual drops of water will even wear a hole through a stone.
Yes, but hair by hair, we expect to pluck you bald. Oh, now, how do you explain all these sons and no daughters?
My father and I always ate rice, made proper offerings to the gods, and they smiled upon our efforts.
You're trying to put something over on us.
Mr. Chairman, that's argumentative and should not appear on record. We may get into trouble over it.
Only tall trees have to fear the woodcutter. Little shrubs like you are perfectly safe. Ask the applicant if he has any further statements to make.
No.
Ask if he understands that his case is pitifully weak.
I rest my case in the laps of the gods.
But where will your case be if we stand up? Gentlemen, I'm inclined to move unanimously that we exclude this applicant. On the record, he hasn't got a Chinaman's chance.
Chinaman's chance means no luck or 0 odds. Chinese immigrants were often given the most dangerous jobs in the Central Pacific Railroad companies, such as setting and igniting explosives. Chinese railroad workers were lowered off cliffs by rope to set off dynamite, but if they were not able to back up in time, serious injury or death would occur.
Chinaman's chance also alluded to judges and juries convicting Chinese defendants on the flimsiest evidence. A third fact to the same was that Chinese miners could only work gold claims after others had found the best ore.
So,
I move deportation.
I move to defer action. Maybe he can get a private bill passed by Congress on his behalf.
I move suspension of exclusion pending he marries an American citizen.
Lord, that is 3 separate motions, and where are we? The commissioner is here watching us deal out justice. With this sad showing, he will surely bust us. So let us 3 agree and avoid confusion. Vote with me and let our motto be unanimous exclusion. After consultation and much hesitation, we have decided that you Chinese must go back and sip your tea in far-off China across the sea. We have laundries here galore. Frankly, we don't need any more. So pardon, please, and your ancestors too, but it's the very, very best that we can do. Tell him he's excluded.
I'm excluded? I'm excluded!
In the summer of 1937, Japan attacked the Marco Polo Bridge, invading China. This was the beginning of the Sino-Japanese War. China declared war on Japan, and Japan attacked and invaded Peking, Tientsin, Shanghai, and Nanjing. Japanese boats blocked the Chinese coast.
Inform him of his rights. United States District Court, United States ex rel versus the Board of Special Inquiry. The district director, the specific commissioner, and the general commissioner, or anybody having custody of or an interest in the body of want to go, hold everything. There will be served upon you this writ, which says herewith and to writ, in the interest of international peace, you will effect want to go's release. The decision of the board will be in tote, Chrysler and DeSoto, reversed, vitiated, and ignored. The reasons are many and sundry, but the principal one is, I need someone to do my laundry. Shall we honor this writ? All in favor?
Ayah! Ayah!
So be it. The writ is honored. The alien may go.
He's free to go?
Yes.
My son!
His son?
His son?
Miss French, take this wire for a warrant.
Will hopefully be a very rich and robust discussion with some great panelists about some of the themes that this particular piece has brought out. So if our panelists could join the stage. So welcome, everyone. Thank you all for your attention and for staying for what I hope will be a really exciting discussion about some of the themes that have been brought out by Christina's one-woman show, as well as the play that we just saw. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Alyssa Choi. I have the privilege of being the moderator of today's panel. I wear a few different hats, perhaps most relevant to some of the conversations today. I'm fortunate to be the current chairperson of the Asian American Commission of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is the only state government organization that advocates exclusively on behalf of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities of our state. I'm also a member of the board of directors of Company One Theater, which has been fortunate to collaborate with ArtsEmerson in the past, and which mission is really to try to enhance social justice and equity through the arts, and in particular theater. And I'll just say as a caveat that any opinions or any comments that I express today are exclusively my own. So with that, I'd like to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and share maybe a little bit of background that may be most relevant to today's conversation. Let's start with maybe Christina, if you can start.
Hi, I'm Christina Chan. I'm an actor, playwright, and director. What's relevant? I grew up in the South End. I immigrated from Hong Kong in 1962. We actually came as refugees under our own name, CHAN. My grandfather came here as a paper son, and I can tell more about that, how that came about, how I found that out, where I can tell you about my intersection of theater and my personal experience with immigration.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ragini Shah, and I teach at Suffolk University Law School. I direct the immigration clinic there. So we represent immigrants in exclusion proceedings, deportation proceedings, kind of like what you saw in the play. And on a personal note, I was actually an actor for some time in New York before I went into teaching law, and so really feel like the power of theater to tell stories is quite amazing.
I feel like, I'm not an actor, but I feel like I should be after watching two wonderful pieces. My name is Stephanie Liang. Some of you are probably wondering, Liang, where did that come from? Well, that's what's on my birth certificate, Leung. That was my father's paper name. And so when I went to junior high school, that got changed to Wong, Stephanie Wong. So I have a little certificate from the court saying, yes, you can change your name to Wong. And so in my childhood, that made for a lot of confusion because, oh, am I Liang or am I Wong? Well, definitely when I went to American school, I was Liang, but when I went to Chinese school, I was Wong. And then when I got married, I added Fan, so that's why you see Fan. So just add for some more confusion. My dad was a paper father. My grandfather, on my mother's side, I'm not sure what that was. I'm still in the process of trying to find more family history, and the fact that so many people use paper names makes it very, very difficult to do family genealogy and family research. So there's still a lot of information that I need to get, and one of the things that I hope all of you will do is support the Historical Society, because in addition to knowing family history, you want to know the background, you want to know why these things happen, and the two shows that we saw today helped a lot, but I can say more later.
Thank you. So I wanted to start off some of the conversation with a bit of an open-ended question to our panelists. We saw some terrific theater just now. Rangini, you particularly made reference to how theater can actually open up some conversation, lead to some reflection on some fairly serious themes. I wanted to find out from our panelists what resonated with you from the theater that you saw with respect to some of the current issues that we're dealing with politically and how that ties into some of the themes of the plays. Maybe we'll start again with Christina.
How timely can this be?
Exactly.
Understatement, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was asked to go on to this project, when I met with Susan in last year in the summer, I said, yes, I'm interested in working on Harry's play. Who knew that the election would happen the way it did, and that these executive orders targeting a specific group, much like the Chinese Exclusion Act, would happen. So you can't plan these things when you're planning for something on stage. You want it to reflect reality, but this is almost a little too much, isn't it? So I want to say that for me, working on the two plays, I learned about Harry Dow's legacy, how he helped the Asian community, and the discrimination he felt working as a translator. And that came out in the play. This was Harry's comment on being a government official caught between helping his community as a translator and then also trying to walk the straight line with the government rules and regulations. And right now we are in that confusion right now of the same thing happening. Tin Fu Wu, I want to make a comment that that was the effect of the Chinese Exclusion Act on women. And when a population becomes excluded, economically they're trying to leave their country because something's happened, the women become vulnerable. And this is what happened with Tin Fu Wu. She had to leave her China because there was a famine. Her father sold her because he lost all his money in gambling. But there were other girls who were sold because the family farm was going in famine. So she was sold. And we're starting to see that too right now, the exploitation of women and children because of the wars that's happening and because other countries are not helping. So that's the relevancy of these two pieces for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with all of that. And I think, you know, just from my perspective as somebody who studies immigration law quite a bit, the Chinese Exclusion Act was not only the first act, as I think the documentary pointed out, that specifically singled out a particular national origin, but it also led to the Supreme Court to decide that that was okay, right? That Congress could actually, in the immigration context, exclude people based on national origin. And so you see the effect of that today. I mean, we've seen the effects for years, but you see the effect of that today when even in these cases that are about the essentially Muslim ban, you have to make the argument that it's about Muslims because just singling out nations for discrimination is actually legal. And so I think, you know, thinking about the ways in which the law helps to, unfortunately, oppress certain groups and allow this sort of singling out, for me, really sticks out in this time period. And then I think the other thing that I noticed in particularly the farce was the attitudes of the immigration officials, right? I mean, they flip a coin to decide. And many times as advocates, we do feel like they seem to be flipping a coin. And now I feel like it's gone even further into almost a degree of animus. You know, like there's a degree of empowerment that ICE and CBP, Customs and Border Protection officials feel to just kind of mete out arbitrary punishments, detention, et cetera. And that is very concerning. And then, you know, trying to figure out, well, what is the, from my perspective, legal response? But I think there has to be maybe more than just a legal response to that. And the last thing I'll say is that I think particularly the story of Tin Fu Wu, for me, was a lot about the ways in which immigrant communities are resilient even in the face of enormous pressure and otherization. And I think that also speaks volumes about what's happening now in immigrant communities, the resilience. I mean, some of it is, you know, there is a lot of fear and a lot of kind of hiding people in houses and things like that, but, and, you know, going to Canada instead of seeking asylum here. But I think there is also an incredible amount of resilience. And I think for those of us who are in positions that are maybe a little bit more, I guess the right word would be stable, at least from an immigration perspective, I think it's kind of incumbent upon us to help foster and, you know, support that resilience.
Lost my train of thought. I was listening to you. You know, I think for me, just, you know, watching the two pieces and just looking at the kind of atmosphere that we have in this country right now makes me understand, you know, more what my father and many others went through during that period of exclusion. And so even though, you know, my dad, he married somebody who was born here, and he had 5 children who were all born here. He's the only one who really was not a citizen. But so when the government issued a so-called amnesty and said that there was a confession program and people should step forward and just say, yes, you know, if you're not who you say you are, you know, just come forward and we'll make everything right again. And my father and many others said, oh, this is a trick. You know, and so you see that going on today. It's all a big trick to get you out there, and then they're going to arrest you and they're going to deport you. But somebody outed my father. Somebody said, you know, the guy that runs that shop, he's really not a Leon, he's really a Wong. So my father ended up going forward, and he did not get deported. It's kind of like, okay, what are you going to do with all his 5 children? I mean, like, we were all either, you know, in junior high or in elementary school. Plus, my mother was working as a translator for the immigration department, so, you know, so it would have been a little bit embarrassing. They would not have anybody to help them. So yeah, I can understand the fear that comes from being an immigrant these days, and what people are going through these days with that.
I wanted to get further comment from the panelists on something I was thinking about just as I was watching today and looking at the title of the event, which is Facing Exclusion. And while that ostensibly was meant to have us think about immigration exclusion, it also struck me that we were doing a piece in theater, in the arts, which can also be exclusionary in other ways. We certainly have seen much of that in the mass media about how there's a lack of diversity and certain ethnicities not being well represented, so there's some exclusion there. And also the gender dynamics or gender power dynamics that I think Christina alluded to in her comments just a short while ago. So perhaps a bit more reflection on what this whole idea of exclusion really means. With immigration, there's certainly some power dynamics going on. In the theater world, in the arts world, there is that. Rangini, you talked about the stability and how there may be some comfort in that, but those who don't have that stability, what that means for them. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, again, in sort of an open-ended fashion about this whole idea of exclusion and power, gender, racial dynamics, and how that all plays in, and how that comes together with the immigration issues too. Stephanie? Sure.
In terms of exclusion and being an undocumented or illegal resident of this country, it means that you lose your voice. So a lot of people in Chinatown would not speak out on politics, especially during the communist takeover of creating the People's Republic, because they were so afraid that whatever they say, well, you bring attention to yourself. Whatever you say, people are going to say, oh, you're a communist. So you can't really speak freely. You can't even say, there's a beautiful part of China, because people say, oh, she's a China lover, she must be a communist. So you lose your voice. You can't really say a whole lot. You don't want to bring attention to yourself, so you do lose your voice. And when I was in high school, there was actually, this is during the Red Scare era, there was a woman from Sweden who was one of my teachers, a history teacher. She was the only teacher who really taught us to question what we learned in American history. And one day before the end of the school year, there were some suits that showed up at the door. I went to an all-girls high school. And so when you see all these men coming through the school and they all have suits on, I stopped in front of our classroom. She went out. She came back in. She was in tears, and then she went out, and we never saw her again. She was probably deported. So, yeah, losing the voice is really, to me, a big thing.
Absolutely. Rangini or Christina?
Yeah, I think, that is a really powerful point about losing voice. And I think that, certainly I think that's a lesson that gets learned in many ways by communities, not just communities that have undocumented members or who are undocumented themselves, but here we are generations later, and there's still a lot of ways in which the Asian American community is excluded, not just from theater, but also from government, from lots of ways in which participation in civic life, in political life, in business life could be certainly much better than it is today. And that's obviously true for other racial minorities and for women as well. So just kind of achieving this status of immigration stabilities, I certainly didn't mean to suggest that that means that there's not other kinds of exclusion. I think there certainly are. And I guess, one example I would give is that for my family, immigration was actually very easy relatively. So my father was the only one who sort of, he had to wait until 1965 to be able to immigrate. But once he did, he immigrated with a green card. It was never called into question whether that was legitimately obtained or not. His brother came as a student and then went to the INS office at the time to renew his student visa, and they were like, don't you want to just apply for a green card? Like, you could just apply for a green card. And so he did, and he got it. And so it's super easy in that sense, but that doesn't mean that neither of them ever experienced exclusion in other ways, either at their jobs or in society in general. And so I think this is a battle that many of us know what it's like to fight. And so I guess in some ways when I say it's upon us to help some of the communities that are feeling more of the brunt of the immigration policies, it's really about solidarity, because some of us, we really do know what it's like to feel this in other aspects of our life.
I started in theater because I was doing something, I was volunteering in Chinatown, a couple of blocks from here on Beach Street. The CPA, the Chinese Progressive Association, was helping the laid-off garment workers win back their rights to training benefits. This was in the 1980s. Across the way was the Asian American Resource Workshop. They were putting on a play called Paper Angels. And I would drop in and say, oh, did you do blocking? Are you guys off book? You know, terms I'd learned 10 years ago when I was in in a play in high school. So they thought I knew something about a play. This one actor came up to me a couple of weeks after they started rehearsal. His name is Henry. And Henry asked me if I wanted to be in the play. And I thought, that's strange, you've been rehearsing. I've been dropping in, you know, you have a cast. And he said, no. This one actress never showed up. We auditioned her, she got the role. And we happened to see her in Chinatown, he and another friend. And they went up to her and said, hey, where you been? Rehearsal started, are you coming? And so she just took off. So Henry asked me, do you want to be in a play? So I said yes, and I auditioned and got it. And I ended up playing this 70-year-old woman. I'm destined to play old woman because I was 25 then. And my husband, in this play, immigrates to the US, and then after 40 years, he goes back and brings me over. We get detained in Angel Island, and we are interrogated. And these are the stories, Paper Angels, of the people who were detained there. And so through this play, I found out my grandfather was a paper son. I didn't know. Now my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, his last name is spelled Goon. My father, who's the eldest son, his last name is Chan, Chan. I was 25 years old and I never put the connection together that our names should be the same. And it was only through this play. I said, why didn't anyone tell me? Didn't they have this in the history books when I was going to school in the 60s and 70s and 80s? No. They didn't mention any Chinese in American history because, you know, we didn't exist. We had no contributions. And my parents, their generation didn't talk about it because it was illegal. So I didn't know. It was only through this play. And I thought, how many of us, like me, are walking around, you know, lost without their history? And so for me to work on this play, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little emotional. It just brings back the circle. I was just down the street, you know, 1980s, it's 2017. And so now I'm here in a bigger venue with a bigger audience, and you know, I get to bring back someone else's history, Harry Dow and Tien Wu, so that perhaps other people could have a light bulb in their head too. That perhaps that we can keep the voices. You know, Asians are invisible, and that's not a good superpower to have. Okay, and this is not original. Somebody else said this. This is not a good superpower to have. We have to speak up. And for me, I feel like I found theater to be the way to do that, to present information that affected me, that perhaps it'll affect you. So we've got to keep supporting. I'm going to give a plug to theater. Okay, people like to see film. Okay, I like film too, but you know what? Theater is alive. We have to tell our stories. We have to, if there's any Asian plays, please go see it. The theaters in Boston now are starting to do more theater based on Asians. So we have to go and see those stories. We have to tell them. We want to hear our stories. Besides, I want to get more job after this night.
And I just...
All right?
Christina, thank you for that, because I just want to add that we also need to know more in terms of history, because like you, I went to school in the 60s and 70s, and there was nothing in terms of Chinese American history. And, you know, you just kind of grasped at anything that you could get, and there was very, very little. So, you know, a time for plugging the Chinese Historical Society, because that's what, you know, our job is, I'm on the board, is to try and make sure that that history does not escape us, and that people know, and the next generation knows about it, and my grandchild's generation knows about it. So, yeah, thanks for the opportunity to say that.
I'll make a quick, somewhat facetious comment how rare it is to have 4 Asian women on stage in a theater at one time, right on stage. We're not in a show, but let's hope that this is not a rare occurrence in the future. So I'm not sure how much time we have, but perhaps we could open it up to any questions from the audience? If anyone wants to have any of the panelists comment on anything. Yes?
Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful, this celebration of history and how far we've come in our history. But I want to remind everybody there were 10 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. 1 million is estimated to be Chinese. So do not forget the people working the chickens in the Chinatown restaurant or in the buffet restaurants. I recently raided 4 Mississippi buffet restaurants, and many of the restaurants have been closed down. So as much as we celebrate this, I think this energy also has to remind us that it's many, many of our compatriots are still under great danger of being deported, not just theoretically deported, actually deported. And I think it's good for all of us to remember that as successful as part of our community has been, we have a very large piece of the community that is still struggling.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to introduce that person who spoke. That was Tani Lee, Professor Emeritus at MIT, and actually the Dean of Chinese American History in New England for the Historical Society. Thank you, Tani.
Thank you, Professor Lee. And of all ethnic groups, Asian Americans have the highest proportion of immigrants too. So that's also something that
So I hope the Commission takes on this issue as well, as opening up for the educated.
Yeah. I will just quickly say that the Asian American Commission did put a statement out, a formal statement out about immigration, and please pardon the shameless plug, but feel free to look at the website and read that through, and it clearly supports all of us as immigrants. Time check, I guess. Okay, I think we should go ahead and wrap up. So with that, I wanted to thank all of our panelists for really insightful, personal, wonderful comments, and thank all of you for being here. This is how we can change our circumstances, and this is how we can become more engaged. And please, as Christina said, support theater, support the arts, as sometimes that's a means to being able to make change happen at a political level. So thank you so much, and hope you had a terrific afternoon enjoying this wonderful, these wonderful plays that we saw today.
Thank you everyone, and I hope you all enjoyed today's performance. We do invite you to continue the conversation out in the lobby in front. We actually also have an art piece by Wen Ti-sen from his hometown exhibit this past fall, and it's actually a portrait of Harry Hom Dow's parents, which is part of the exhibition. We also have a table outside, if those of you who came in posted some certificates of resilience, which is a hack on the certificates of residence cards that Chinese had to carry during exclusion, which has sort of now morphed into green cards. But we are sort of taking this approach, thanks to Professor Mickey Lee's great idea, to kind of take this moment, maybe if light bulbs have kind of gone off for you during today's performance, to take a moment just to sort of think about what your hopes and dreams are for your community, our community, and sort of your position on immigration and sort of what role you can play today in going forward with this knowledge that you have gained from today's performance. So we have that outside. And as Stephanie mentioned, Tani Lee, for those interested in learning more about Boston Chinatown's history, there is a wonderful, wonderful website called Chinatown Atlas, chinatownatlas.org, which you can find out the whole sort of past 100 years plus of sort of the urban development of Chinatown and its history as it relates to policy and population changes. If you guys enjoyed today's performance, I really would encourage you, as a personal plea, to please support the Chinese Historical Society of New England. We are a very small shop currently. Myself, Jess, Cammie are, keep the lights turned on. Thanks a lot to support to the National Park Service. They are funding her fellowship this year with me to sort of put on productions like this. We're really striving to show the importance of history, why knowing our history is important, and why it's relevant to today and understanding where we're headed. So with that, please become a member today. We've got some nice choices of thank you gifts. We've got some nice logo bags or a set of box note cards from the Chinatown Atlas if you'd like to join us. And then also, I really wanted to encourage you to also tell others about today's performance. If this is something that you wished, there was someone you're thinking of that you wish they'd been sitting next to you to watch this, or they wouldn't, couldn't make it today. It is being archived by HowlRound TV, so that way people will be able to access today's performance as well. And with that, I just wanted to really give a huge, huge thanks to ArtsEmerson for their belief and invitation to coming in here and really letting us be a community in this space and sort of joining forces in presenting something that is so important. I'd actually like to ask, and actually Christina, I wanted to just say thank you specifically to you for your vision, commitment, going above and beyond, bringing in the history, Harry, yourself to this project. It really, it just has been amazing. And if the cast could also come on out too. You guys really bred life into this. It was amazing. Thank you. So with that, please, cool. If you could take one, pass it down. Thank you. Excellent. And to our panelists, thank you guys for helping sort of letting us explore sort of the meaning of what the panel and presentation today was, and sort of maybe we can move over to the side over here. Stephanie's going to...
Can I just give one more message for those of you who are not ethnic Chinese? I think you should all also be exploring your own immigrant background and history, because I think that the more that we can all understand what that experience is like, the more we have any kind of hope of changing some of the policies that are being put in place today. Thank you.
So, thank you, ArtsEmerson. Thank you to the cast, to the crew, to the panelists, to Jess, and to all of you for all being here today. Thank you.